So this video will be a little different. 2021 has been a much better year than 2020 was, and while it still wasn't the greatest year for multiple reasons, including one that's happening at the moment I'm recording this, the content that's been produced during this year has been some of the best stuff I've ever watched, played, or heard in my life. So today I'd like to go over all of, or at least a good majority of, the content I experienced this past year, from YouTube to video games to movies, TV, etc. You're probably saying, hey, this sounds a lot like Super Eyepatch Wolf's videos with the same concept. And that description is apt, because Eyepatch Wolf is one of my main inspirations for the videos I've done recently. All two of them. And this video in particular may be sort of a ripoff of his videos with the same title even, but I believe that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and I really want to show off all the stuff I've been obsessed with in 2021. Or he could just take down this video and sue me to my last penny, which would be really out of character for him. So let's not dilly-dally anymore, and let's begin. I've gone through a lot of phases with what I watch on YouTube. When I first started watching it, I was obsessed with video game countdowns like the ones in the old Countdown community. This video by Big Gnome is a good recount of the history of this community I was once a part of. I highly recommend it. Then I started watching reviews of movies and video games. Then I was into theory videos before MatPat became an embarrassment, and as of right now, I like really long video essays about stuff I don't care about. Hence, by this year, I became a fan of the YouTube channel Izzzyzzz. Is it Izzy3Zs or is it Izzzyzzz? I should violate her personal space and ask her myself. In any case, Izzy makes video essays about a multitude of topics, from old internet fandoms, from history, and retrospective videos about certain games to any number of other weird internet moments. That doesn't sound too different from other channels we'll talk about later, but what makes Izzy unique is her charming and comforting personality. Watching her videos is like listening to that sweet teacher you had talk to you about a concept that you never thought you'd take an interest in. I especially love her video covering the Warrior Cats fandom, its history, and how surprisingly large and diverse it is, learning about all the different branches of the fandom as well as what the books are actually about and the many controversies that stem from it. And the fandom really interested me, as I had seen Warrior Cats books many times, but I never knew it was this big a deal online. I also really loved her video on the controversy surrounding the band Tramp Stamps. I had wanted to learn about why that band was talked about so much, so when I saw that video uploaded, it made me really happy. If you want a cozy trip down certain memory lanes of the internet, I highly recommend Izzy's work. We'll talk about reflecting on internet history later. Speaking of really long video essays, we have Sarah Z. This humble Canadian girl is like Izzy in many ways, hence why I also got into her videos this past year. Sarah talks a lot about the same stuff Izzy does, the only difference being Sarah's videos are a great deal longer. But that's not a bad thing, as Sarah's videos are super detailed yet have enough personality and dry humor that they're definitely not boring. No matter what she's talking about, she has this welcoming and inclusive demeanor to her that makes just the sight of hearing her talk at a camera for 2 hours one worth watching all the way through, whether the video be about teen dystopian novels or home stuff. I specifically love her video on the McElroy brothers and their fandom. The McElroys were once this big deal online, internet personalities that were funny and inclusive, but due to things like their internet presence impacting their relationship with one another, and their needs and wants to be as inclusive and respectful as possible, as well as the decline in quality of their many series, they're not nearly as popular as they once were. They haven't been cancelled, the situation's a lot more complicated, and Sarah's video does a fantastic job in explaining all of it. It may be 2 hours long, but it's a worthwhile watch. Her video on Homestuck is also a noteworthy one. Her ability to talk for this long without breaking eye contact from the camera or messing up a line utterly astounds me. My relationship with NASCAR is actually not that complicated. I've never watched it, don't plan on watching it, and my only real experience with racing of this type is with the animated films about talking cars. So if I don't watch NASCAR, why am I such a fan of the videos by EmpLemon? If that name sounds familiar, it's because you're probably thinking of Emperor Lemon, the guy who made those Pixar YouTube poops all those years ago. Now he's retired from YTPs and is now making videos on NASCAR. That sounds really niche and not that interesting, but for some unknown reason, his videos are amazing. They have this documentary quality to them matched with engaging narration and his ability to introduce me to topics I wouldn't think about otherwise. His NASCAR videos tell stories of underdogs, revenge, and American history stained with bloodshed. You can see in his videos on Talladega and its complicated and sketchy history, as well as his video explaining 7 instances of revenge taking place on the track. He doesn't just make NASCAR videos, though. Two other highlights are his videos on the 1939 Wizard of Oz and its horrific production, and a video on rare items and collectibles. That video in particular starts out as a discussion about the time a specific item in Team Fortress 2 became extremely valuable and sought after, and it progresses into talking about rare cars, art pieces, and a philosophical talk on why we collect things to begin with and what it means to have the rarest collectible. His ability to weave complicated subject matter from simple places like an online shooter or stock car racing is impressive, to say the least. If you're interested in any of what I just said, then I highly recommend his content. Please help him get to 1 million subscribers. Speaking of YouTubers who change the type of videos that they make, we have the Rpg Monger. I was first introduced to the Rpg Monger through his Fandom Files series, where he talks about specific series fandoms and both the good and bad that came from them. He doesn't make those videos anymore, but the videos he makes nowadays are even better than that series. He mostly does video game reviews and retrospectives, and like the previous YouTubers, they tend to get pretty long. But instead of the videos being insanely detailed and researched like Sarah Z or EmpLemon, the Rpg Monger's content is different, as it's weirdly relaxing in a way. He has this relaxed and warm tone of voice that can soothe anyone, so it makes watching him talk about obscure indie RPGs akin to having a warm blanket over you while drinking a warm cup of tea. You can especially see this in his 2-part epic on the Mega Man Battle Network games. You just get sucked into the videos, making them impossible to click off. He also did a video on Ghost Trick, one of my all-time favorite games, and seeing him talk about the game in his style of video was really entertaining for me. If you have a lot of time to kill, I highly recommend watching some of the videos the Rpg Monger has done. Specifically his Ghost Trick, Legendary Starfy, Mega Man Battle Network, and his Amori videos. We'll talk more about that latter game a bit later. We've talked about a few video essays so far, but this next one has to be my favorite of this past year. It's a little YouTube channel called Jacob Geller. Jacob, like our previous essayists, covers pretty much the same topics, such as video games, TV, and movies. But there's just something about Jacob's content that I truly love. This year especially, I saw him branch out from talking about just video games to talking about a Jewish folklore legend and its place in our popular culture, finding comparisons between Dark Souls 3 and Charlie Kaufman's I'm Thinking of Ending Things, to his Simpsons couch gags existentialism and its animator's other work that deals with the same theme it presents. But my favorite of his videos this year is his one on what he calls bright, unbearable realities. Basically, events that are seen as momentous and emotionally impactful, but most probably didn't happen. Starting with a bunch of guys crying unstoppably after watching the play Death of a Snailsman, and then talking about other events of a similar nature. One of my favorite things about Jacob's videos is the subtlety of it all. He doesn't spoon-feed anything to you. He lets you come to your own conclusion about what he's trying to say, and I really like that. Some of the essayists I talked about previously go into a lot of detail about things, so it's interesting that my favorite out of all of them does almost the exact opposite. There's also a mysterious quality with his subdued nature in his videos, as you can see in his many cryptic video descriptions. If you're into relaxed video essays about some of your favorite pieces of media, then Jacob Geller might just be the guy for you. Okay, so this last YouTuber doesn't really fit in with the others, and he's not even really a YouTuber to begin with, but he's no less important than the essayists I previously talked about. Hassan Khadair makes very interesting content, to say the least. He usually makes these TikToks with a Mickey Mouse puppet, as he does an impression of the mouse while reacting to pretty much whatever he wants, while occasionally the puppet gets demonically possessed. And I don't know why, but these videos have made me laugh harder than any other YouTube content in a long time. It's hard to put into words what makes them so funny to me. I think you just have to watch a few and you'll get the general idea.
Oh boy, I like that! Why are you wasting— Stop! 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 Right now! Ah! The crackers! The crackers!
Why would you do that to the cookies? Why?
I love Coca-Cola, man. Coke tastes so good. Yeah, I love that, fellas. Wait, do they make Twix cookies? What? I never heard of no fucking Twix cookies, pal. Oh boy, I want to put some of
That in
my mouth. Yeah, I was gonna say mouth. You should just tear that off. You don't need a fucking knife for that, man. You're doing too— What? Ew, I don't like white chocolate! It's darker, it's not fucking worth it, pal.
I want the darkness, you know what I mean, pal? Ooh, M&Ms. I bet those would feel real nice inside of my...
Green or purple? Purple for sure, pal. Yeah! Right, bitch!
Green or blue?
Green! Yeah!
I'm Mickey Mouse and I'm always right.
That's red for sure, Donald. Yeah, you don't know nothing, Donnie. It's me. It's Mickey. I know everything. Orange. Yeah!
Or purple.
Purple.
How many did you get?
Oh, pal, what are you doing? Stop. Don't just throw stuff.
Yo, that's gonna make a big splash. I love splash.
Disney's most racist moments. Okay, Disney's literally never been racist ever.
Oh fuck, turn it off. How do I turn this off? Fuck.
Come on. Everybody look at me. Well, look, I'm dancing. I'm Mickey Mouse and I'm dancing. Oh boy. Don't look at the screen. Don't look at that. I didn't.
Oh fuck.
Look, a golden apple. Baby, and if it's quite alright, I need you, baby, he on a lonely...
We're best friends in a room.
Mickey! Oh god, this is not a good look for me. Minnie, I can
explain myself. Oh fuck.
Now, Mr. Mouse, if I'm reading this correctly, it says you're getting a divorce because your wife has been terribly silly?
No, Your Honor. It's cause she's been fucking goofy. Motherfucker, Shrek, what the fuck, man?
I'ma fucking kill you, boy.
How could you do? All right, fellas, let me tell you how I'm gonna survive this, okay? See, literally, I'm fine. I'm doing great. I stole this fucking cop car because fuck 12, am I right? Oh boy, see, look, I'm fine. Obviously, now I'm in the passenger seat. I'm a fucking immortal god mouse. I'm built different.
Yo, I'm fine. Yo, I'm fine. See, I'm perfectly fine.
Oh, Walt, I really miss you. I miss you so much, Daddy. Even though you're a bit of a Nazi.
I miss you, Dad. I miss him.
So yeah, Mickey Mouse having a failing marriage and possibly being gay while constantly getting possessed by Pazuzu cracks me up. Over these past couple years, I feel like I've really expanded my taste in video games. For example, I've been getting into a lot of RPGs as of late. I used to think I'd never get into the genre because I was worried I'd never understand how to play them, but now that I've played a few, they've become some of my favorite games. One of them is this little game, you've probably never heard of it, it's called Omori. Yes, I'm actually going to talk about this. I assume you've heard of Omori and the reputation it has, but if you haven't, Omori is an RPG made in RPG Maker. Remember RPG Maker? You're probably wondering how a game made in such an iconic yet old piece of game making can create such an impact. Well, it did actually start development around the same time games like The Witch's House and The Crooked Man were coming out, but it unfortunately spent a decade in development hell for a multitude of reasons until it finally came out at the tail end of 2020. And oh boy, even if I didn't know all the crap that went on behind the scenes to get the game made, I would still be very impressed by it just on its own, because Omori is a game unlike any I've played as of late. Not only because it's an RPG with a unique and fun battle system, and it's a quirky world with quirky characters, but it's because it's one of the only games I've ever played that nearly brought me to tears. I don't really cry anymore, mostly due to my good friends and my antidepressants, but a piece of media that can almost make me cry is definitely something important. Omori appears to be a cutesy indie RPG on the surface, but there's obviously more to it than that, as you can tell by one of the tags on Steam being psychological horror. And yeah, Omori can be very frightening, but the horror of the game is well balanced. Fun combat, entertaining characters, and an engaging story that will make you laugh, horrify you, and make you cry all at the same time. And even though I beat the game a long time ago this year, I'm technically still not done with it. There are entire bosses, levels, and other secrets that I missed on my first playthrough, and the fact that all of that and more is in an RPG Maker game of all things is absolutely astounding. Developer Omocat truly went beyond for this project, and the game should be played by as many people as possible. However, I may not do the Hikikomori route just yet. I don't think I can handle even deeper emotional scars as of now. Remember Paper Mario? Neither does Nintendo. The Paper Mario spin-off series of games are beloved by many, and yet Nintendo seems to do almost nothing with them nowadays, especially following the beautiful yet flawed Super Paper Mario. Sticker Star proves that the quality of the games has taken a serious nosedive, and while I've heard good things about some of the newer titles, they still can't capture what was so beloved about the first two games. Clearly, we need a Paper Mario game that captures the magic of the first one and the Thousand Year Door, And luckily, we got one fairly recently. Kind of. Introducing Bug Fables: The Everlasting Sapling, a game heavily inspired by Paper Mario, but not to the point where it's a total ripoff. It takes what people loved about Paper Mario, including the unique way of battling and its cutesy art style, and forms something newly beautiful out of it. The game takes place in a world of bugs and other creatures of the sort, where you play as 3 little insects, a beetle named Kabu, a bee named V, and a moth named Leaf. Together, they form Team Snakemouth as they travel across Bagaria searching for ancient artifacts in hopes of finding the legendary Everlasting Sapling, said to give eternal life. Bug Fables may not have deep complexity like Omori, but it is a very charming adventure with plenty of twists, turns, and surprises to keep you engaged. I do love the gameplay of Bug Fables with the very accessible yet fun combat and the many other side quests and abilities you can get, but what I truly love about the game is its world and characters. V, Kabu, and Leaf are an entertaining and lovable trio, and their personalities clashing as well as their backstories and inner demons make me want to see each of their storylines through. The other side characters are interesting too. I especially love this one bug in Golden Path who throws a boulder. He's adorable. The world of Bug Fables might be my favorite part of the game. A lot of the work went into Bulgaria's lore, customs, landscapes, races of bugs, etc. And it both feels like a living, breathing world that you're setting off on an epic quest, as well as really charming. The detail of Lost Sands being a literal sandbox is so cute. Just like with Omori, there's still a lot of the game I haven't completed yet. I haven't gotten through the entirety of the Cave of Trials yet, and there's an entire card battle mini-game that I also haven't finished. There's so much to love about Bug Fables, and with all I've said about it, as well as the extra content I have yet to finish, it might be a game that I'll play again fairly soon. Hey guys, great news! Metroid is back! After nearly a decade and a half, we finally have a new Metroid game that's not a remake or embarrassing. And it's 2D. Sometimes it feels like this cruel mistress of a world lines up the right way. Metroid Dread is everything you expect good Metroid to be. Large, distinct worlds with beautiful atmosphere, satisfying gameplay and exploration that rewards a deep examination of the world of ZDR, and of course, some really fun boss fights. But there's one thing about Metroid Dread that sets it apart from other games in the series and makes it, in my opinion, also the best. The game is really hard. I cannot stress just how much I was not expecting this game to be as hard as it is. Some of the bosses and enemies require attack memorization skills the level of Dark Souls, as one slip-up could seriously cost you. Samus has never felt weaker, and that especially goes for the big main enemies of Dread, the Emmys. These things make me feel so many emotions in such a small amount of time. They are the SAX on steroids. Invincible nightmare machines that will kill you if you so much as touch them. And you do have the ability to parry their oncoming attacks, but that parrying window is so small you might as well just give in to your fate. I felt a combination of terror, frustration, stress, and satisfaction, all in a short amount of time, and I absolutely hate and love these things at the same time. Metroid Dread also has some pretty hefty story twists for Metroid standard, which not only feel like a breath of fresh air for the series, but also make me excited for what comes next. Obviously won't spoil them for you, but if you finish the game, you know what I'm talking about. The hype for Metroid Dread was insane. I actually took part in a huge video project in celebration of its release, which you should totally check out, and that hype was more than delivered. It's beautiful and detailed, challenging in both gameplay and story, and will definitely scratch that Metroidvania itch you might have. I might have some problems with the game, which I'll show on screen, and you can pause to read, but the good stuff the game has is so good it more than makes up for the possible shortcomings. I did something weird this past summer. I actually went to a movie theater. Yeah, an actual movie theater. Remember those? You used to actually have to physically go to a different place outside of your home in order to watch a movie. And then something crazy happened to the world. I don't really remember what. 2020 felt like an entire decade ago. And then movie theaters were shut down. That is until this past year, when movie theaters opened again, yet still trying to be safe. And what movie did I see in the theaters after a year and a half? Well, it was a film that actually broke new ground for me, because it was actually the first R-rated movie I ever saw in a movie theater. That film being The Suicide Squad. I thought I was done with superhero movies for a while. After all the Marvel movies that came out the past few years, I felt completely burned out by them. I watched WandaVision at the beginning of the year, and when the ending post-credits scene happened, I thought, I really need a break from this. I need to watch another genre of film. And given the state of Marvel as of late and where it's going, yeah, I'm kind of right. But then the Suicide Squad comes out, a DC film directed by Guardians of the Galaxy's James Gunn, and it honestly rekindled my interest in superhero films a little. Maybe it's because it's from a different company, but it could also be because the film is unlike any other superhero film I've ever seen. Not just due to its violence and vulgarities, but because of its charming quirks. From the way the film is structured by different title cards to its sense of humor being both incredibly dark yet surprisingly sweet, the Suicide Squad breathes new life into the superhero genre, at least it did to me. Again, it's the characters that are the best part. Ratcatcher and Polka Dot Man are the most I've related to characters in a superhero universe since, I don't know, Rocket Raccoon. Peacemaker is a gun-wielding, red-blooded American patriot, which is a character type I love, and John Taiwan isn't a country Cena nails it. And Bloodsport and Harley Quinn make for really entertaining dual protagonists. Like with Gunn's previous Guardians of the Galaxy, the Suicide Squad also has a lot of heart. These are characters no one respects. They are technically villains who did some pretty heinous things. Yet here they are trying to complete a mission and eventually having to save the world, and I honestly find that really heartwarming, as well as with the relationships they form because of the mission. The Suicide Squad may be insanely violent. Side note, I saw the film with my dad and he's since called it the most violent film he's ever seen. But it's also a really funny and really sweet film about odd yet relatable people. Oh crap, I forgot about King Shark. He's a good boy too. Dune is a film that was hyped beyond belief. A new Denis Villeneuve film based on one of the greatest, if not the greatest, sci-fi novel of all time featuring an all-star cast. The first trailer for the film, released way back in 2020, blew my mind. And then the pandemic happened and the film was delayed, but now it's finally here. When the film released a couple months back, it was met with universal acclaim, so naturally I checked it out. And yeah, everyone's kinda right, the film was pretty awesome. After the mediocre disaster that was The Rise of Skywalker, I thought we'd be done with sci-fi epics for a while. I am so glad to be proven wrong. The world of Dune may not be new to people who've actually read the book the film is based on, but for someone who hasn't, like myself, the universe of Arrakis and the other planets feel new and exciting. I love the world building in Dune, with the different cultures, technologies, and nature mixing together with other creative ideas to create a sci-fi world unlike any I've ever seen. Now, the actual plot of Dune, outside of the excellent world building, is actually fairly simple, but I think this actually works to the film's benefit. Because the world Dune creates is so engrossing, it allows us to overlook the simplicity of the story to avoid any more confusion. And besides, just because a story is simple doesn't mean it's a bad one. The tale of Paul Atreides and his hero's journey feels like one that's been with us for decades now. And it kinda has, but Denis Villeneuve's directing and writing, along with a genuinely great performance by Timothée Chalamet, gives it a newfound edge and conflicted personality as he comes to terms with who he is and what he's going to be. The film does end with obvious sequel bait, but unlike other media that does this, I'm actually excited for what comes next. Unlike a franchise that I've grown exhausted of, this is a brand new world full of new ideas to me, and I actually want there to be a part 2 of it, and a part 3, and a part 4, and maybe even more. It is a big series after all. Dune is everything I didn't know I wanted. It's inventive, beautifully shot, directed, and scored, and it's got giant Alaskan bullworms in it. What more could a guy like me ask for? I've thought a lot about Tenet since I watched it at the tail end of 2020, the most recent film by visionary writer-director Christopher Nolan. The film is very polarizing for many reasons. Even the audio of the film has been criticized. Some people say it's a director at the height of his power, others say it's a film so confusing it hurts and that Nolan has gotten a little far up his own butt. What's my opinion on it? Honestly, I completely agree with the notion that Tenet is one of the most befuddling films ever made. But that doesn't mean it's bad. While I could not get a large majority of the film on my first watch, the second time I watched it in the spring of this year, it made somewhat more sense. Honestly, the confusion this film induces is part of the reason I kinda love it. It's really fascinating watching a film where you have no idea what's going on, but the director does. At least I think he does. It's really sweet watching something made by a person who's really passionate about it. And while you may not fully understand it, you can clearly respect and admire all the love that went into it. And there's a lot of stuff in Tenet that I really like. For one, the action set pieces are some of the best I've seen since Mission Impossible Fallout from 2018. A lot of them tie in with the film's theme of going both backwards and forwards in time. And while some moments of them don't really pan out due to those lofty ideals, looking back, I remember all the good things about them. My favorite moments of action in Tenet include the opening opera shootout, the kitchen fight, the single loudest scene in movie history, the inverted hallway fight, yes, both versions, the car chases, and of course, the big climax. Another thing I genuinely love about Tenet are the characters and the performances by their actors and actresses. John David Washington, or as I like to call him, Denzel Washington, gives the protagonist of Tenet a level of cool and confidence not found in many Christopher Nolan characters. The way he fights a future version of himself who's going backwards in time is just full of the exaggerated swagger of a black man. It gives me goosebumps every time. My boy Robert Pattinson also gives a solid performance as Neo, the best movie bro since Chewbacca. Other solid performances belong to the characters played by Elizabeth Debicki and Kenneth Branagh. While a lot of Tenet I found myself loving, there are some aspects of it that have been criticized that I do unfortunately agree with. The film is super confusing, and that normally wouldn't be a problem if I could, hear what everyone's saying, but Tenet generally has some of the worst audio mixing I've ever heard. It's not bad for every scene, but if you're going to watch this film on a TV without headphones, I do recommend turning on subtitles. Despite those critiques, I do love Tenet. It's not the best film in the world by any means, but it is one of the most ambitious films I ever watched, and I honestly think almost all those ambitions are met to create a movie experience unlike any I've ever watched. Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts is an animated series on Netflix produced by DreamWorks. It tells the story of Kipo, a scrappy young girl who finds herself in a land of giant anthropomorphic animals called mutes after being sent to the surface from her underground home. This new world Kipo experiences is actually our world, but these animals have taken it over. As she tries to get back home and find her father, she meets a bunch of interesting characters, including a cute mutant pig she names Mondu, a hardened little girl named Wolf, a happy-go-lucky survivor named Benson, and his best friend named Dave, a mutant beetle who continuously molts in age, leading to many comedic scenes. Kipo also meets the mutes of this new Earth, many of them having some of the coolest character designs I've seen in a while, and entertaining personalities that also match with what animal they are. The show does go deeper into the characters' backstories, and there is an overarching plot with certain major villains, which I do like a lot. But what I specifically love about Kipo is how each episode, especially in the earlier seasons, feels like its own unique and separate thing with a different mutant, sort of like a Monster of the Week type show. This also allows for interesting world building, with each mute species being defined with its own home, culture, and system of beliefs. This creates a sense that this beautifully drawn world is a living and breathing one that may appear to be a destroyed wasteland, but instead makes the world we once inhabited somehow even more colorful and alive than when we ruled it. This diversity in the species also goes for the human characters. We see different walks of life for each of the characters, some growing up in comfort while others grew up with hardships and scars, leading to many different viewpoints on the world, making for great conflict and character moments. The diversity isn't just for personalities, the show is just diverse in general, and I really like that. It is so refreshing to see Benson, a black openly gay character who A, doesn't die, B, openly says he's gay and falls in love with another man, C, is a major character who's not just some background extra you can edit out for China, and D, is an actual character. Yeah! Again, it's the performances that add to the lovability of these characters. I specifically want to mention Dan Stevens as Scarlemane, the main villain for the first 2 seasons. He manages to nail both the insanity and imposingness of him, as well as adding an awkward sincerity to him, mostly stemming from his tragic backstory. He also manages to have his redemption arc of some sorts, which I found to be really touching. Not as complex or even as good as Zuko's redemption arc, but still pretty decent. Honestly, for all the praises I've sung about Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts, it really isn't anything too special. It's a great show, but if you're looking for something that could possibly impact you deeply with certain moving emotions, as well as provide a huge adventure like no other, there are better shows to watch, even on the same streaming platform, like Dragon Prince, or yes, Avatar: The Last Airbender. God damn it, a show doesn't need to define a generation of animation for it to be a great show. And Kipo proves that, with fun characters, beautiful animation, a fascinating world with fascinating beasts, and an overall experience full of positivity and love. It's also refreshing to watch a post-apocalypse story that's not depressing or dark. It probably won't change your life, but it will be a great watch. Unless you're a neurodivergent like me, in which case this show will define your personality for the next few years. Whoops! Another interesting thing that happened to me this summer, besides going to a movie theater for the first time in a long while, was that I got into a shonen. Yes, a shonen anime. The question is, which one? There's so many to choose from for someone like me who wants to get into more anime but hasn't watched many outside the occasional Cowboy Bebop or Studio Ghibli film. There's One Piece, Attack on Titan, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Demon Slayer. Oh boy, here we go. I will say that I have not seen Mugen Train yet, but I really want to, so all my thoughts will be about and referring to Season 1 of Demon Slayer. One of the things that's prevented me from watching many shonen is the humongous amount of episodes there are in any of these shows. So when I saw Demon Slayer's first season only had 26 episodes, I decided to give it a watch, as this season has about the same number of episodes as the other anime I've watched so far. And what did I think of it? Well, the fact that after I finished watching this season, I bought 2 plushies of my 2 favorite characters from the show should say a lot about my feelings towards it. Yeah, I really like this show. I haven't read the manga, and I don't know much about other shonen shows to compare this one to them. I stopped watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood after the whole Nina Tucker thing, but as an action anime show, I loved this. The setting of Demon Slayer is really unlike any I've seen. Its Taisho-era Japan adds both an element of rustic wilderness as well as an early 20th century industrial society, which I found to be really unique, and it only adds to the already incredible action of the show. The fight scenes in Demon Slayer are both exciting displays of animation and prowess, while also being puzzles somewhat. Each demon has its own set of different strengths and weaknesses that Tanjiro and the gang need to overcome, and we often hear a lot of their inner thoughts about how they're going to go about defeating these demons. This inner monologuing could slow down a fight in any other show, but for some reason it just works in Demon Slayer. Maybe it's because you're learning how to defeat these demons at the same time the characters are, so it creates a weird parasocial relationship between you and these hand-drawn demon samurai. Speaking of the characters themselves, the actual demons feel like their own beings with different personalities, backstories, and moveset. Learning deeply about them, you actually feel somewhat bad for them, so I found that to be very interesting. Nezuko is a really cute girl who I can definitely understand why so many people love her, but then there's her brother Tanjiro. Tanjiro is a great protagonist. He's caring, determined, and wants to see the good in people. I know Zenitsu is pretty useless and annoying, but I still like him. And then there's Inosuke, the greatest character ever put into a work of fiction. I don't think I need to explain him. The other supporting characters I found to be interesting and likable too, and I can't wait to see more of them in later installments of the franchise. What I really love most about Demon Slayer, though, is its heart. The plot of the show is mostly about a brother trying to save his sister from her demonic state. And through all the hardships and struggles Tanjiro and everyone else goes through, that goal doesn't really change. It's also about Tanjiro trying to prove to everyone that his sister isn't a monster. There's still a kind and gentle soul behind that muzzle, and I find that to be really sweet. The hype for Demon Slayer is insane. For a while during the pandemic, Mugen Train was the highest grossing film, not just in Japan, but in the entire world. And with the Entertainment District arc coming out right around the time this video releases, it may already be out by now, the hype is sure to be as strong as ever. And why shouldn't it? Demon Slayer is a great show for people wanting to try out the shonen anime genre, as not only is it simple to grasp and comprehend, there's also a show with great action, entertaining and interesting characters, and heart in it too. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is a bit different from the rest of the things I talked about, but it's no less important to me in 2021. The last thing I want to talk about is a band, Death Cab for Cutie. Death Cab for Cutie is an alternative rock band from Bellingham, Washington, formed in 1997 by lead singer Ben Gibbard. The band has since become one of the definitive indie rock bands of the 2000s, alongside bands like the Shins and Modest Mouse, and their music has reached mainstream success with many of their singles and albums going platinum. And they've become maybe my favorite band of the past few years. For a musician to be considered one of my favorites, they need to either A, grow on me after a while of listening to their music, or B, be a musician I've known about for a long time. Death Cab for Cutie was none of those things to me. I didn't know a single one of their songs outside of Maybe I Will Possess Your Heart, and I actually got into them immediately after listening to one song in particular. I was listening to a 2000s alternative playlist when their song Crooked Teeth came up. That song is maybe one of the catchiest rock songs I've ever heard, and one of the catchiest in their discography. The song is my most played of 2021 according to my Apple Music, which shows how much I love this song. Since then, I've only gone deeper down the Death Cab iceberg, and in doing so, I've found some of the best music I've ever listened to. Songs off of Transatlanticism, Plans, and Narrow Stairs all have this Ben Gibbard quality. Complex and abstract lyrics about love, loss, and other personal items in anyone's life. mixed with unusual instrumentals featuring a wide variety of guitars, synths, pianos, and bass. I've already talked about Crooked Teeth, but other highlights from their discography include Soul Meets Body, a folk-inspired song about spiritualism, You Are a Tourist, an inspirational and lively pop, Gold Rush, one of their more poppier songs with lyrics that are depressingly relatable, and possibly my favorite of their songs, the 8-minute epic of I Will Possess Your Heart. The song sounds really unlike any song I've heard, a strange yet beautiful combination of Indian prog rock, with lyrics detailing the inner thoughts of a stalker. Deathcap for Cutie is a fantastic band, but you're probably wondering why I chose them as one of my favorite things of 2021. Every other entry here was something that came out this year or really close to it, and Deathcap released just an EP that was just covers. Well, the other reason for Deathcap being here, besides their music just being plain amazing, is that I actually saw them in concert this year. After a year of being indoors with public gatherings out of the question to avoid getting infected, being in a crowded space with people was a bizarre experience, but it was also a wonderful one. Deathcap for Cutie is a surprisingly great live band. The way Ben and the others move makes me want to move with them, and his vocal chops are just as good on stage as they are sounding on a recorded album. It was probably one of the best nights of my life. There's one more important thing about Deathcap for Cutie I want to talk about, and this is going to get personal, so be warned. This past 2021 has honestly been a really bad time for me. I felt depressed, alone, bored, and other combinations of those feelings. Most of this is due to the pandemic still technically going on, limiting what I can do to socially interact with people, as well as a deeply upsetting passing of a beloved family member. I've thought a lot about my place in this world right now and what I should do with what I've been dealt. And yeah, this whole year's been a lot of those depressing thoughts, but part of the reason I fell in love with Deathcap for Cutie is that my feelings have been given a voice with Ben Gibbard. I relate deeply with a lot of what he says. Transatlanticism being a concept album about a long-distance relationship with someone and being isolated from them has made it become one of my favorite albums, along with the quality of the songs themselves. Deathcap for Cutie has helped me a lot in 2021, as well as with all the other things I've brought up in this video. At a time of isolation and depressing boredom where days feel like they're all blending together, it's important to have things in life you can consume, analyze, and just be entertained by. Deathcap for Cutie is especially this for me. Their discography is extensive, their songs are deep, and they can make me feel certain special emotions that I haven't felt from any other music. If you have something like this in your life, you should definitely cherish it. Thank you for watching.